How you doing? This is Dame Crawford here with Lieutenant Strong and Kaya from Ark Republic. We are here to talk to you. That's right. We're going to talk to you a little bit about a lawsuit that she has going, and she's going to talk to us about things that she's going through, the things that she's dealing with, and the reason why she brought this lawsuit along.
Now, this is something that I think is so important people should listen to, because it's very rare, in my opinion, that one, you have someone who wants to talk about a complaint that they filed with such a huge organization as the LA Sheriff's Department. So please, please stay and stick around and listen to this. And thank you, Lieutenant Sherrod-Strong, for being a strong sister in telling your story.
Let's embark on the Ark Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times, to free the voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times, so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.
You brought up the cafe that you helped get open at your last job. So I want to talk about that and roll that into, I know you can't say too much about it, but I want to talk about what prompted you to file the lawsuit at the place that you were last working. Tell us where you were working and tell us, about the lawsuit.
I was over food services, and I had for quite a long time, I had different supervisors. So in the span of the change of command for our sheriff in 2018, I got to food services in the early year of 2018 in January, but at the end of the year is when Alex took office. I had the same supervisor throughout 2018, and then thereafter, for 3 years, I had 7 total supervisors. Wow. So there were so many people moved around that I had to reacclimate to a new supervisor every few months. Each one of those supervisors, I'm kind of looking at it as starting over. So Dame, you're my supervisor right now. So we sit down, we have that wonderful conversation. You're here to support me. And you would usually get, I don't know anything about food services, because I didn't either. When I actually first started there, I interviewed for the position because of it giving me a base to move on to captain. It would give me a glimpse of what it would be like. At food services, instead of having a captain as a unit commander, it has always been a lieutenant. But the responsibility is huge. 65 locations all over Los Angeles County that you're either shipping food to or having food prepared for. And to a hospital, 2 cafes, and 5 jail facilities that you're in charge of, and a $30 million budget. Wow. So
I would have never known that within the department, there actually is something allotted for food services. I would have thought that it was contracted out. I didn't know that it's actually, could you explain that? Because that was foreign to me, like food services.
Yes, it's the food services unit, and it is basically run by a professional staff management team, and then there's a sworn oversight for that team. There was a time when they had some things going not so good with finances, so they started putting sworn officers at the unit instead of it being only run by professional staff.
Okay.
So it's the unit that provides food to all inmates, to officers in the officer dining room, and also we ship to 35 other police departments, and also to our station jails. A lot of people are shocked about that existence, like you, because even internally, I didn't know about it. I knew it existed, but it was kind of that thing that was like, I don't know, they feed inmates. And I'm being honest when I say that. I had a sergeant hit me up one day, and he said, I think you should put in for food services. I said, why? Like, why do you want me to work at food services? What is it about? When he mentioned the contracts, the budgeting, the staffing, and all of the things that go along with that job position, at my stage, at my time of being a lieutenant, I said, wow, that's a good, I'm going to learn there, cold turkey. Problem was, remember I said 7 different supervisors. My first one was an amazing supervisor. I had another one sandwiched in there that was really good. They allowed me to be creative, and that's how that cafe was open. I honestly selling air castles, as we used to say when we were kids, your wolf tickets. It was another term we would use when you're just kind of bluffing as a sorts.
Take it till you make it.
I told my supervisor, I said, well, what's the biggest project for food services? And she says, well, they've been trying to get the cafe open, but we haven't been able to do it. And this was in April of 2018. I told her we'll have it open in June of 2018. And she's looking at me kind of like, yeah, good luck with that. Well, we opened on June 26th. And it speaks to what I was talking about with titles and what you're able to do and what you can't do because you're this rank. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. Me and my team that I put together of knowledgeable people about food industry, where when I don't know something, I have to be humble enough to say I don't know. Dame, I mean, you are expert in this, changing tires. I need you over here changing the tires. And whoever else, Tom, you're good with, steering wheels. I need you to check it out, make sure everything is okay. And we put a team together and we actually made it work. And that's without any formal training of being a unit commander for food services. It's about caring enough to do the job. It's about actually wanting to do the right thing. It's about everything that we swear and take an oath for, and it can be done. Some of those impossibles, just like treating people better on the streets that we come in contact with. You got to get out of your head. And I'm not saying that we remove everything we grew up with. Your parents taught you evil. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But I firmly believe there is power in the pause. And I say that even to my kids. We knee-jerk reaction with everything. It's my opinion that, well, that was done wrong, and it was it. And we don't have all of the underlying. We don't have all of the actual information.
Right.
So I practice the pause by saying, okay, Sidra, is this coming from a bad space? I can't go to a traffic stop. I can't contact an inmate. I can't, when the lady runs up and she's asking me questions in uniform, I can't ever put my political party as how I'm going to deal with that person. We don't walk around with a card and I hold up and I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. But that's the big fight between people. I have to contact this lady, just like I talk to the man over here, like I talk to that suspect over here, like I talk to the inmate, until they change the trajectory of our contact. I can't go into it with a preconceived notion, so that's how I'm going to treat this human being. And the same with this job. I could not go into it. And I even had heard comments, oh yeah, food services is where they send people. Somebody wrote that in an article. It was in a comment because they put me on the whistleblower. Big headline. And someone commented, oh, isn't that the place where they stick people that, to really their career is kind of dead in the water? I would challenge that. How many people are going to go in with a $30 million budget, over 200 staff, and 65 locations all over Los Angeles? And again, all those successes that I listed for you, not many people would do that. They'd be happy to have a county car, a great schedule. And as I was told when I first sat in the chair by my predecessor for that position, hey, this place runs itself. If it runs itself, what do you need me here for? And I met the biggest challenges from the staff simply because they were comfortable. They were comfortable in doing the bare minimum. And here's this crazy, hey, let's all get in the conference room, come up with some ideas, let's make this place. And then looking at me like,
she gonna make me work? What?
Yes.
Oh yeah. People are like, I got 6 more months till retirement type people.
Absolutely. And again, I go back to, and I have to keep saying that, I was raised, I always say I'm an alien. I was raised differently. My parents gave me the good, the bad, and the ugly. You see it all. They didn't glaze over and say, hey, well, you're too young to really hear that. And like, no, I don't want you to hear that thing there. Because you know what happens is we go out into schools. And I remember a PTA meeting and a lady stood up and she said, well, I can teach my kid whatever I want to. And I went, after she sat down, I raised my hand because I just always have to speak out about something. It's me. I said, well, I would have to challenge that, and just hear me out for a minute. Your child comes to school and speaks about something sexual because they watch something on TV. You're okay with them watching that at home. my child comes home and mentions that term that you use, they learned from their friend, you just upped my parenting game. I wasn't going to tell my kids about that right now, but I have to address it now. You're forcing my hand in my home because I have a choice. I can just, you're too young, go away. We don't talk about stuff like that. And now my kid's like, well, I'm just repeating what little Johnny told me at school. And you beat a kid down instead of addressing what they're sharing. And I had to tell this lady, yeah, what we do affects our neighbors. What we do affect other people. We don't get to say, oh, this is the way Sidra lives, so everybody has to live like me. That's just crazy. And so the success with the cafe came with a whole lot of pushback. A whole lot of pushback. And you would ask me about other candidates. I had one of the candidates, and you said names, so you put me on the spot, but I had one of the candidates who literally sent their lieutenant over to me to tap on my elbow while we were doing the ribbon cutting. I'm standing with the sheriff of Los Angeles. Back then it was Jim McDonald, and the district attorney, Jackie Lacey. So I'm talking to the two people that are in charge of the largest, those departments and in charge of that building at HOJ. And a lieutenant taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, my captain needs to talk to you. And I'm thinking, do I just tell the sheriff and the DA, pound sand and just walk away? And I said, okay, tell your captain for me. I'll be right over there. And then it spiraled into this candidate later asking me to come and work for the candidate. Didn't know anything about me, but realized, how in the world did she do all this? Never asked for a resume, never, what are you capable of? Don't know that if somebody else may have done that. And to tell me to work for you, and in the position she was speaking of, and I just said a pronoun, in the position that was spoken about, it would have been a backwards move for me. Understand, I was a unit commander and you're a unit commander where you are. I'm coming to work for you. So my career doesn't matter, go backwards. And I just need your expertise because I like what I saw. It was one of the most condescending things to me. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. But you were speaking to the successes of the cafe. It was amazing. I felt so good, impromptu, didn't write a speech, stood up at the podium, announced all the successes, gave credit to my staff because my team worked so hard for that. And it has now been closed down. They shut the cafe down and people were thinking that I did it, and that wasn't the case.
Interesting.
Yes.
Wow. Always erasing Black women's accomplishments. So what prompted the lawsuit, and what is the lawsuit?
The lawsuit, and just briefly, is I reported my own supervisor for lack of support of me, and also the top professional staff, who is the title is manager of food services. I was going into this when I was talking about the shuffle of supervisors, but each one of those supervisors, with the exception of a few of them that were really, really brief, I would talk to them about the struggles I was having with this particular employee. And what I'm working with, I spent a year and a half kind of hand-holding because there was a super promotional jump for this person. So I was hand-holding, scale back your work, have other people do some of your work so I can sit there with you and we can do some leadership training and things of that nature. And it went on for about a year and a half. And I'm trying to give some grace that you don't. I understand you've promoted really high up from where you originally were. So there's a gap in there. I get that. So I'm going to hold your hand. I am giving your work to others so that they can help along this because we're a team, right? They can do some of the work while I concentrate and help you because I want to see you succeed. And it was constant pushback. This individual was also made a racial comment that ended up coming back to me. And in light of the fact that this person is my same race, it kind of pokes holes in that, oh, we're being, so much is going on, because I catch it from both sides. It's not just from those in uniform. That's why I think it makes it okay for me to go, if you're not accepted 100% in any of those settings, because I'm a blue line and wearing a uniform to those who don't know about the officer side of it. And then within that whole realm, I'm not welcome in a whole lot of settings. I walk into a room and it's like, I even get kind of looks to a certain extent. The good thing is that I can, on an intellectual level, explain myself. And the work speaks for itself. I'm also a very avid documenter. Some people don't like that, but I have learned to, because I've had some experiences where, put it this way, 17 years ago, had we not had documentation, I would have been placed under investigation for not reporting something major. And Alex would have allowed that to happen because he was okay with sacrificing me. Think about it. His friend was there and they were friends, from my recollection. He was there before him. He came in after this particular person. He keep doing what you're doing. Do the work of the grant and then I'll sign it. And then it's submitted almost like you're doing your work. If 17 years ago, had I not documented the way that I do, who knows what my career would have been? So who knows whether I would have kept my job even. I would still be sitting here in front of you speaking as Lieutenant Strong.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Arc Republic. If you like what you see and you like what you hear, you can actually keep this mothership going. How? You can make a tax-deductible donation in several ways. One, Cash App us at Arc Republic Media. And you can also go on our website, arcrepublic.com/donate. As well, you can also donate to our fiscal sponsor and our sister organization at Black Farmers Index, that is Cash App, or also go onto their website, blackfarmersindex.com. We are two Black women-owned media organizations who share our profits so folk can thrive.
Lieutenant, according to several articles, part of the whistle blowing that you did was alert authorities or file some type of concern that the food that inmates were getting was rotting. Yes. And after that, there was some type of reprimanding or something that happened because you said something. Can you speak about that?
I reported again my supervisor and also the gentleman I was speaking of with the racial comments and him struggling in his job position. And I also had my sergeant report to me about the molded bread. So the bread was brought to my office and it was told to me that it had gone out on the regular line for feeding. In questioning a little further, and I almost remember kind of joking saying, no, you don't mean in Los Angeles County when you're saying the inmates were fed this bread. And I took a picture of it and I started doing some of, our inquiry because I want to know what happened and, digging a little deeper. And then because of statements that were made by managers who work on the professional side, I requested an investigation. So that went to my supervisor, actually went to the chief. And there was supposed to be a meeting with me and my supervisor because of struggles and me having also reported that she was not supporting me in my position. And instead of the meeting that I thought I was going to, I was called in a room by my supervisor and placed under investigation and transferred.
Wow. Can the bread is coming from an outside food supplier?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's food that's shipped in. And basically COVID-19, we had such a loss and we were with staffing, it was constantly a problem with hiring staff members. And so trying from our side to get them to hire people, but you're losing a lot of the staff, and a lot of the staff that were cooks are of older age. So they're nearing retirements and they're kind of, we're losing them. So we couldn't keep up with a lot of that. So part of what I called an alphabet plan, because I remember, like I tell you, I package something up and say, here, this is what I'm about to do. And as long as I get, I get a thumbs up. I haven't had anybody turn their thumb down yet, and it comes out and it works. But a part of our alphabet plan was to have food shipped in to offset the cooking days.
Okay.
So they could, in between some of the cooking days, we had food that was already prepackaged to present to the inmates. And so it was from an outside source, yes.
Was this something that was ongoing? Was this a one-time incident? Did you
Well,
find out?
It was served over 2 days.
Okay.
And there was knowledge of the problem with it the day before those 2 days.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, so those county reports are true that I get about the food. Okay, so so I have a question, because in these reports, and maybe this is what you were referring to, that a comment that was made was something like, oh, she's a Black woman, so she's kind of like unapproachable, or she'll be angry, or she'll be bitter, or something within that context.
No, actually, it was either issues or attitude, and I don't have it in front of me from the actual report filing, but that comment was made to one manager to another manager, and that manager came to me with the information. And unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of saying, oh, well, whatever. You know, you just told me something that is against what we call, or what's the title is policy of equality. And there's 12 different factors that go into this policy of equality. So it's your age, your ancestry, your race, your religion, your medical condition, mental condition, sex, sexual orientation, you know, I think it's color, nationality, and then your ethnicity and the disability. And I think I just rattled off all 12. So I'm patting myself on the back a little bit. Hopefully I got those right. But it fell within that reporting. So I couldn't just sit on that. And I'm almost caught in that crosshairs of, I think what triggered through my mind is that this is coming from somebody who's actually Black, like me. Like, wow. So it puts you in a bit of a quandary and kind of pokes holes in that, you know, everybody in a uniform is anti-Black. Because there's no everybody in any situation at all. And you can imagine that being a little painful. If I do catch all the mess that I do catch already as a Black woman, the last thing I need is someone that actually looks like me saying and making those kind of statements about me. I believe underlying, because of all the challenges as well this individual was having, the drowning man, like I said, about the statement that was made on Wednesday, I need to gather some followers against her. So, you know, yeah, you know what? You know how they are. And that is horrible.
So I'm sorry, Dame, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say, so what I'm hearing is that perhaps maybe Villanueva's comment is also connected to the lawsuit as well. So it was kind of killing two birds with one stone with the debate.
It's connected, and it's a good point you bring up, because I even saw comments in some articles that I was doing this in support of my husband's campaign. And this is all because he's running for sheriff. I even had a previous supervisor who sent me a text message out of the blue after the news reporting was aired. And it simply said, "I'm ashamed of you, Sidra. And this is all to help your husband's campaign." And I sat there for a minute. And if I could describe this, and I'm not making this up, all of the comments, all of the, you know, that incident you just asked me about in the reporting, you know, other things that I have censored myself so that I could remain professional and, you know, okay, it's not that big of a deal. When I was growing up, we would say it's like water off of a duck's back. You know, let it shake off, turn this cheek, turn that cheek. All of that was welling up in me because I said, first of all, your name is not Samuel Sherrod. God rest his soul, 2012 in April. Your name's not Eric Strong, who I have, that's as close as two people can get, realistically, in a marriage or in a relationship. Who are you to be ashamed of me? What gives you the right to be ashamed of me? Unless, of course, it's a looking down on. That's my opinion, but that's how that felt. It felt the same to have someone tell me, come and work for me. I'm sitting there going, wow, that's an interesting statement. But because I practiced that powerful pause, I can separate and for a second, not curse him out, not slam him in a text. And that pause allowed me to sit there, live in that moment of feeling how I felt, and then returning with, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. There's a lot of stuff you don't know. But I didn't feel that I owed this person the history with the sheriff that does connect this being connected to the campaign. Mm-hmm. It's not so much that I did this like, I'm scheming and wanting to get this guy so that he's out of the way and my husband can become sheriff. Eric and I are of retirement years for the most part. Mm-hmm. We sat down one day and we were discussing, do we like the way it looks on the department? Eric actually was getting some offers for chief positions, but I remember him telling me about one and it was like somewhere in the Midwest. And I said, no, we're not moving there. I'm glad they like you and I like you too, but no, I don't want, it's cold there or something I remember saying, but he from the academy was the honor recruit in his class. Eric's one of those guys that honestly, and I'm gonna be funny for a minute, you want to punch him in the face because like, how do you know all that? You didn't want to take that test and you didn't have to do any studying. You didn't have to think about anything. Yeah. And it's because he lives and breathes reading something, educating himself on something. And I think the same thing that people believe, if I was to talk to some of the people that commented and, why did she wait so long? I didn't wait so long. It was mid-September when I said something about those particular things. And it's the first week of October when I'm placed under investigation. So I don't know how much, I could shorten that window other than dragging my chief into my office and saying, look at this. But they immediately went to that kind of thinking. And the thing about it is, so did that supervisor sending me that text. Mm-hmm. And the thing you didn't give me is the respect of knowing who you worked with, that I'm not the same person, that I have never given you any reason to doubt and think I'm a liar and I would make up all these things. But I looked at other women's situations, and I'm going to go there for a minute with the gender. I looked at the other women's situations and I would see that things are reported and then it's like, oh, she waited too long. Mm-hmm. 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 I believe the situation that this one deputy that the sheriff was fighting to return to work, and Mandoyan is the last name, and you may have read about it in the papers, but it was something that was mentioned that the woman waited too long to report it. And I think it's almost an immediate, she's crying wolf, and she was probably flirtatious, and there they are crying and whining. That's so demeaning to a person. When any number of these commenters, honestly, and this is not me saying, call me, we'll have a discussion. It's none of that. Any one of them have access to the department still, even if they're retired. You can call me and say, hey, Sidra, what's up? I don't know you, but this looks a little shady. Are you doing this because of your husband's campaign? No, I think it was done to me because of my husband's campaign, actually.
Interesting. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about that too, because I think this goes to a bigger point, not just the lawsuit, but this goes to a bigger point because your story, I have heard this story about Long Beach PD. I have heard this story in New York and Pennsylvania. I've heard the story at LAPD. We interview officers about the same thing. When an officer does step up to try to get their department to do the right thing, they get blackballed. And I think that calls into question when people say, well, there's no good cops because they don't out the bad cops. So to me, they're all bad cops. But I want you to give a little humanity to that for people to understand that you do have to decide basically between doing the right thing sometimes and just keeping your livelihood because of the way that they treat the officers that do try to come forward and make change. Can you speak to that for a minute?
I think the best way to describe it from my standpoint and my experience is that I was one day sitting in, I think 10 locations of where I've worked over my time with the department. And of those 10, I got to 6 locations where I reported something. And I'm sitting there thinking, I reported it to who I needed to report it to. I never went public with any of it because if you're doing it in the proper manner, you're staying within the guidelines of, okay, let me report this to the next person. But to have reported things at 6 locations is pretty bad, you know, out of 10. And
60%. That means a 60%. Like it's a 60% clip.
Yes.
Yeah.
And where people would, I can never and have always hated the snitch term. I did that term, you know, people say snitches get stitches, and you know, it's very well known, you know, you keep it. Why is it that we feel we re-victimize people? If you stepped on my toe, I'm a snitch if I tell mom. But why did you step on my toe? I yell out and I'm a snitch, but you pinch me in the backseat of the car. Well, mom didn't see you pinch me. She just sees the light. Wait, Sidra, sit still. What are you doing? And I'm not supposed to tell on my brother. But why did my brother pinch me in the first place? It's the same mentality of snitching and telling on the department, not being loyal, being a traitor. You're, in essence, you're telling me, shut up, don't tell the secrets, and deal with whatever I dole out to you. That is dehumanizing. That is disgusting. And in a sense, if you're to support me, because we're in this brother, sisterhood, whatever it is, you wouldn't put me in that position to have mom pull the car over in the first place. How about we fix the problem of what's being done so that you don't have someone like me saying, I'm actually being transferred and moved out of my job position because I told you something was wrong. Are we in the job in the business of hiding, or actually courage, integrity, wisdom, fairness, all the things that are, they sound good, like titles. Everything sounds so good. I've worked here and I've done this and I've done that, and still we're in the same situation. So what changes did you really make? What did you really bring? And then you condemn people. And I literally I had an incident I remember where my schedule was changed. Anyone on the department knowing that you get a month's schedule and you know what days off you have. So, you know, you have, you know, Thursday, Friday off, or, you know, Friday, Saturday, or whatever. And sometimes at some places it rotates. So 1 month you're off Monday, Tuesday, then you go to Wednesday, Thursday, then you go to Friday, Saturday. It was during Thanksgiving and my schedule was changed mid-month. There's me going and, excuse me. I don't understand this because I'm working on Thanksgiving now, a double. I had Thanksgiving morning off at the beginning of the month, and I planned something at my home because we couldn't do dinner. I did the food. We were going to have a breakfast and eat Thanksgiving food. Oh, well, it was a glitch in the system. And not only that, I had other officers that looked like me advised me that it was probably not good to press this issue. Again, how does that make somebody feel? Probably not a good thing to press the issue, but it was wrong. And you're very well aware that the schedule doesn't change in the middle of the month. The system doesn't even do that. You have to go in and physically do that. There's no glitch. You wanted to give Thanksgiving to another person.
Quid pro quo.
Why? I don't know. If you like them better, I wouldn't automatically, everything in my head doesn't go to race. And I will speak to the race card thing because that's usually, oh, they're pulling the race card. I'm not pulling anything else out of the drawer. I was born Black. I didn't get in line and say I wanted to be a 5'4", and I ain't telling you my weight, but I didn't get in line and actually pick out who I was going to be. So why am I condemned for being that? I didn't pick it out, but I could choose what I did with it. And my choices were to actually try to do something to help others. But to actually tell someone that looks like me, pull me to the side, hey, Sidra, it's probably best you don't push this issue. And I'm looking like, are you kidding me? Where's the voice for me to say, we know, ain't no glitch? And here's even better. Why didn't you put the schedule back? If it's a glitch in the system, write it in. Tell the person that has it, they now are working and I'm going to be not off for that day. You know what I did? I turned that into, like I say, and you say, how do you navigate that as a woman in uniform? I turn it into a positive. I can't have my Thanksgiving breakfast. So you know what I did? My husband and my son brought all the food that I had prepared at the home. And we had the deputies roll into the station and get a plate for Thanksgiving. It was the most heartwarming thing that I could have actually, that's human. That's why I put this uniform on. That's what I wanted to do for other people. I didn't get into this job to beat anyone, to mistreat people, to be a part of any gang, I could have been in a gang from where I grew up. You can check it. Never joined one. Because my parents were teaching me how to behave toward people, and they had horrible stories of growing up in the South. Things that just shocked me. And I asked my mom one day, how do you not hate other races? She said, Sidra, if I was to try to find the great-great-great-grandchildren of the people that mistreated, whoever, and with my own grandfather having been killed in the South, if I was to actually hate or try to find the grandchildren of these people that did this to my dad, I would never find them. So now I'm supposed to go out and hate this guy because he has blonde hair and blue eyes, and that guy because he's got sandy blonde hair and brown eyes and he's white. She says, you can't just hate people on sight. If you're going to hate anybody, let them do something to you first. And it's what I grew up with, and it's part of what's in me. So this image that's being painted of me is very, along with the dehumanizing, just keep quiet. I even had someone tell me, this investigation is going to blow over. Do your days off and you'll be fine. Mm. I'm thinking, wow. So the answer to an untruth is to just tuck tail, put your head down, and just go on about your business. From every angle. And you can call it a race card, you can call it a gender card, you can put whatever title you want on it. These are factual things that happen.
Well, no, that's a culture. Like what you're talking about is a culture. It's a culture of being quiet. It's a culture of sweeping things up under the rug. And it's funny that you use the term snitch, because we even know as street civilians, snitch is regarded for gangsters. If you in that life, you're a snitch. If you're in that life and you get caught, if you do something to a civilian, they not a snitch. They a civilian who got caught up in your street stuff, right? So it's even funny that the police use the street term of because that's, you know what I'm saying, that's a very that's a street term to talk about snitching and holding that same code as the streets. It's very interesting that that dynamic is there.
Well, let me qualify that statement. I'm saying the equivalent of snitching. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody use the term, but the shushing of not speaking out is that culture. Oh, they may not have used the actual term, but you are correct that we become sometimes what we despise. And everything in headlines right now is deputy gangs. Every time you wake up in the morning, you probably have something that's written about deputy gangs. And if with the behavior and the mindset is we're there to stop the behavior, but yet we have those that subscribe to the behavior. I mean, seriously, it's sad that we live.
I wanted to ask you about that too. I wanted to ask you, how has because I know it's just now coming to the press, but me living in South Central, hanging out around 113th and Imperial, 74th and Norm, we've heard about these sheriff gangs way back in like 98, 99.
Yeah, the Rampart with the Rampart scandal.
Yeah, we heard about these, not just heard about, we've had run-ins with these dudes. We've had interactions with these dudes who let it be known they were with the sheriff gangs. And it's not something this is my personal experience with some of the LA sheriff. They let it be known, yo, what's good? You know what I'm saying? Like we get down with our badge and we get down without our badge. I've seen this for myself. So I just want to ask you, in your opinion, why do you think these sheriff gangs have been able to be so pervasive for so long without any consequences?
I think because they grew up, in a sense. They were baby deputies themselves, and it just progressed. And the leadership, some of them were involved in some of these groups of people. And so it was never, you got to understand that from a woman's perspective, and then I'm that I'm talking about, it's not like I'm being invited so I can tell you on this day, this incident happened with this group. But you do hear about the tattoos and who gets invited to get one. Those type of things you do hear. And in my opinion, you're lacking something. So where I grew up in Compton, you know, Johnny that lived next door to me didn't have a dad. So who became like a father figure? The guys on the street, they helped raise him. He subscribed to that behavior. I was looking for a dad. That was my filler. It took the place of the missing father. I think it's the same and similar within the department. Some people, honestly, came into this job with limited life experience. And I'm not talking about life, I'm a big bully and I can pound on my chest. I'm talking about actually having some struggles so that you can understand that everyone has struggles. I grew up in very humble beginnings. I would have loved to have my parents buy me a car right as I graduated from high school, put me on their credit card so my credit would start becoming the greatest. And, you know, everything in my path was cleared away. Like that PTA mom said she could tell her kids what she wanted. I wish I had somebody dropping rose petals in front of me as I was walking. And then I go and apply for the sheriff's department. Of course, my credit is excellent.
I was talking about credit. I was talking about credit earlier because I was approached several times when I was a reporter in LA, because I did pieces on the sheriff's department in the LAPD, and it was a I would say a recruitment light approach. And then, you know, I said, well, what does it take? You know, and the first thing said, got to have good credit. X me out of the box then right now, because I'm Black. Right. So, but we were talking about recruitment because at that time, this is, I want to say 97, 98. And the sheriff's department was, you know, trying to recruit, diversify itself. And so the whole conversation was like these standards that you had in order to you know, to even just walk in front of the door does not fit a lot of folk, especially in the LA area. So they were hiring, you know, what we would call corn-fed white boys in the Midwest coming, you know, to LA well, this is somewhat similar what you're talking about, but just never had any formal or substantial engagement with Black or brown people. You know, and so they're coming into this department and they're in this city, you know, which is very diverse, and like all of these issues were coming up. So you said credit, and it just made me laugh, right? So I wish my parents, I had that parent like, no, you're going to work. As a matter of fact, you on my phone bill, give me that $35 this month. That's the type of parents I have. This is a community bank here.
But you just described it with the $35. That gave you that now you're paying into something. You're vested in it, because now you're going to look at that light bill and like, okay, that bill went up. And my parents made me pay $35 last month, and now I got to pay $70 because I am the kid that's running in and not turning the light off. Mm-hmm. But it speaks to the experiences that you have that give you life experience, though. And yes, I would have loved the rose petals. But I had to realize that, you know, my dad did a money match when I was, you know, just getting into those adult years. He said, for every amount of money you give me, I'll match it. And so what did it make me do? Oh, shoot, I'm going to put my money here, Dad. Here's $100. So I get $200. And so it's and having some struggles in the way that I grew up and seeing things that were in the street, I think it made me a little more tolerant of things. And when I was speaking to credit, if you got perfect credit because mom and dad put your name on their credit card and then the score is ticking and sustaining, as opposed to someone who's grown up in maybe, let's say, a single parent home, but they're actually struggling to help mom keep the lights on. So then they're, and Eric gave this description, so I'm stealing his work right now, but he's described a kid who had a car payment, but he took his car payment and bought his little sister a prom dress. I'll make it up. I'll try to go work some overtime, but this is a memory to give this person. You can't tell me that anyone's experiences are the same. And there comes a level of understanding, taking a pause, trying to actually understand someone's situation. When you contact someone, for me, you're ma'am or sir. Now we get into a brawl and now you calling me out my name. I'm not going to lie to you and say that some bad words may not come out of my mouth. But it's match for match, and I'm the paid professional. You're not paid to be professional. I am. So I have to practice that pause even more so. But to the credit and the image of what is required, I think the requirements actually sometimes can change. It's just for me. I mean, because the understanding is everybody goes to college. They join a fraternity or a sorority, and weed is a big deal in college. Tell me it's not. Because, you know, smoking weed, drinking a lot, and, you know, God bless it. I didn't go to college right out of high school. I went into the military, and there's a lot of drinking and that, but I was just a kid that I didn't want to drink. But you have all of those things that are, yeah, you know, that's just college banter. That's just a couple of deputies getting together and drinking after work. You know, it's just when it's a certain group of people. But is it a just when it's, well, yeah, when you're sitting down, and for me, I'll go back into the space of you asking me about my experience as being a Black woman on the department. I took my polygraph test, and I remember the guy actually kind of swaying me into, you know, it's better that you like straight up truthful with me right now in the pre-questions. And I told him, I have never, and I'm stating it again emphatically, I've never smoked weed. Shocker. Grew up on 137th Street in Compton off of Wilmington, and I've never smoked weed. It's a personal choice. And it doesn't make me a not from the hood, and you're not really a hood person, and yeah, you're, and it doesn't make me this perfect person because I never smoke weed, so I wear a badge and a gun, and I'm just perfect Sidra. I sat there, and he asked me no less than 20 times if I wanted to come clean, because he assumed from where I was from that I was a weed head. And I'm using that term being funny, but that's what your mindset and your thinking is. That's the image that you're going to have of me as a person. And I'm here to tell you, you are no closer to the truth than your ignorance. It's not me. Sidra likes to read, travel, and is an introvert for most part. I'm a very introverted person. And then you introduce me to a room full of people. Shoot, I can carry on a conversation with anybody. Ooh, give me somebody to talk to. So I'm an extroverted introvert, if I said the.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a term. We had a couple of things we wanted to kind of get more insight. It's already been established. I think you established it very clearly that there are some serious systemic issues that you battle, and that are just in institutions, just American institutions, period, but specifically we're talking about in law enforcement. And us as civilians just want to go over some of those Dame started in terms of the sheriff gangs in the department. Can you give us insight in terms of, and we talked about hiring practices and who is given more space, or the fudges in it, but also wanted to know about promotions. You talked about how titles are appointed, but more so, did you see or experience any like cronyism or nepotism there? Like what, break it on down.
It was very well known, and I'll say again, I'm not speaking to other people's experiences. I can speak to my own. It was a term of getting, making sure that your face was out there. And I think they termed it FaceTime. So you need to go to certain events and you be around certain people. And it was getting yourself out there and known, because that selection process, again, there's no test. So yes, absolutely. Your question was whether there's cronyism and nepotism. It's happening now with the current, and it's not the first time. It's whoever's sitting in that seat, of course. And it's almost an understood, because you're going to put the people around you that you feel you can trust. So a lot of people, human nature would go, okay, I want to select my particular group of people and put them into these positions. The problem is that one friend of yours that should not be sitting in that seat, or doesn't have the experience, because you can't tell me, hey, I'm going to promote Dame because that's really my buddy. But I know Dame got some challenges, but I'm going to promote him anyway because it's going to put money in his pocket. And I'm going to tell this other person over here that they're not eligible for it. I once actually had a position I was trying to go for and was told by the actual, I contacted the captain, I'm a lieutenant. I said, hey, I'd like to come and interview. Oh, well, we're not taking interviews anymore. Chance meet with one of the people on her staff. I happened to see them in the hallway and they said, hey, are you going to put in for the position over here? And I said, well, no, I was told that we don't have any more time slots. Well, no, we would really love you to come and work over here. Why would I want to go and put in for that position?
Right.
It's obviously you have some other kind of setup or some mindset of where you want or who you want in that position. And yes, I could turn around and challenge every little thing and people can say, oh, well, yeah, you know, it happens to everybody. You know, that's just how things go. But these are my life experiences. Yes, absolutely. You can almost not get around cronyism and nepotism with no, you know, way to actually test as far as or do a review to see what people have done and where they've worked. I currently don't even know what the criteria is for promoting to the next rank, which for me would be captain, because it seems to be changing. And I'm looking at people that actually weren't even lieutenants yesterday who are now, you know, rank being jumped.
Wow.
It absolutely exists. And is someone going to actually speak out about that in every setting? I would say, hey, in any job field, do people speak out about everything? Some people are in a position of self-preservation. I have an edge though, realistically, because I'm different walking in the room in the first place. So it's more of, okay, well, if you're going to dislike me on both sides of the fence, what do I have to hold other than, you know, okay, let me self-preservation, everybody's preserving themselves. But then there's also the component of doing the right thing. I'm going to speak to something that is wrong. I'm sorry. I'm that lazy person. I'm not going to hide anything from you. I'm not lying for you. Please don't put me in that position. Don't come and tell me that someone spoke to me about being a Black woman and with attitude issues or whatever. Don't tell me. I don't do public service announcements. That's something that's against our policy. I have to go and do something with that. No, it ain't Sidra running in and, oh, I've been disrespected. I remember sitting at a station and I was working on I was a training and scheduling sergeant, and I wrote on the door, I put a note up and said, pardon my dust, I'm working on the schedule. Someone took a picture of then President, they took a picture of, I'm so sorry. They took a picture of Obama. And he was sitting at the desk and he's signing some paperwork or whatever. They stuck it on the door and it said, pardon, you are pardoned or something. Had another supervisor freaked out, ran into the office. Oh my God, Sidra, we're so sorry. And I'm like, first of all, who's we? Because you're the only one that ran in here. Like, what happened? Well, that picture that's on the wall outside your door. So I walk out and I look at the picture and I just kind of chuckle to myself, pull the paper down, but then it must have bugged this person. So I can't just, okay, I'm gonna throw it in the trash and just, it's a done deal. Because what if somebody else walked by, saw that sign, was offended, and now all I did was take it down, ball it up and throw it in the trash? It's a reportable thing. So what do? I walk into my lieutenant's office. I said, hey, happen to know him. He too was a Black lieutenant. And at that time I was a sergeant. And I told him, do me a favor, let's call our intake specialist unit, which is where we report these kind of things. And I'm gonna just let it be known right off the bat, I was not offended in any way, but someone else actually felt this way. Does the cronyism and things like those type of incidents, you would never know about these incidents, save for this discussion with me. And I'm sure that plenty of people could actually give you, especially those that are not so much worried about keep it quiet. I had a commander ask me when they were trying to tell me to actually sign off on a report because some things had been changed in the report. I'm not making this up. And I said, no, and I refused to do it. And I'm told, decide what hill you want to die on. I said, I'll die on the lieutenant hill. And I actually touched my bar on my collar. If this means that I won't go along with doing something wrong, I'm not saying everybody on the department does something wrong, because when people make those blanket statements about law enforcement, that also stings just as much as someone stinging me with being a Black woman. If it's everybody, because it's not everybody that's doing this, but this particular person, and I'm talking about this incident, literally wanted me to do something that would actually cover up for someone else. And here's the deal. It's almost a pick and choose. Well, then you know what? Do what you got to do. Open an investigation on me. You're not going to get me to compromise my integrity, because I got to look at myself in the mirror. I got to go home with me. I can't run away from myself. So yes, cronyism, nepotism, if anyone tells you that it doesn't exist, it's no way that it couldn't exist with no actual, there's no other qualifier. You're a captain or commander or a chief or an assistant sheriff or the undersheriff, and that comes along with someone actually giving you and appointing you that position. And the sheriff is an elected position. I was surprised at how many people don't know that they can vote for the sheriff. Most people think that you just get promoted. No, the voters and the residents of Los Angeles County, and that's not just like I'm in Inglewood, and we have Inglewood PD. I can still vote for the sheriff for the Los Angeles County. Most people don't even, I was surprised to have people ask, well, can I vote? Because I live in Inglewood. We have our own police department. Absolutely, you can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't want people to know about voting like that.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And so yes, that was the long story for a, it doesn't
No, thank
exist.
you.
So
Thank you.
sorry. I'm so sorry, but yeah, that it does exist. Absolutely.
Well, I think we've got most of what we wanted. Getting ready to wrap up soon. Is there something that you want to get in?
I have a whole bunch of questions, but maybe
ahead.
maybe we could do a part 2, because I know time is of the essence, and I don't want to abuse the time. I know you have a lot on your plate, especially with what's going on with the campaign of your husband. Just did you ever feel at some point, did you ever feel like that you were not safe in your place of work?
That I was not safe. I don't, and I'm assuming you mean internally, like working within the wall, not out on the street. I don't really recall not safe. I can't, feel, I can't remember anything. Nothing jars in my mind with you asking me that question. I think I then again lean to that layer or bubble that I put on myself because of the experiences I've had. So it's kind of expected. If that makes sense.
Right.
Like if you already know that you've dealt with so many things that, you can't, everything doesn't go on a report. But they're little chips, and if you cut close enough together, it opens up to a gash. So I don't remember specifically feeling unsafe about anything, but maybe not supported and not protected in the sense of my positions. I'm not given as strong of a voice as others. Currently, I feel like you were a unit commander, but you also needed to be responsible for every piece of paper, everything, report, and I have a staff for that. And because I immerse myself in that to support my staff, now it's the norm. Like, did you get rid? How am I gonna know what report every single one going through and remember what came across my desk when I'm the person that everybody packages things for? I don't think a lot of credence to my position was given to me specifically. So I would say I don't feel supported, not so much of fear. That's the best way to.
Okay, and I have one more question, Dame. I promise I'm going to be quiet.
No, we can get a few. Let's try to get a few more in. Let's try to get a few more in. Yeah. You were talking about the incident that took place in terms of you requesting an investigation with the food, the quality of the food happens during the pandemic. Also, the George Floyd protests are happening. Los Angeles was a hotbed of activity in terms of demonstrations nightly. What was your headspace being an officer at this time and then this going on?
And I don't know if you mean just them all happening and
like it's all happening, like, so all of this I mean, there was just I'm an outsider looking in. I was actually in Italy. I was outside of the country, so I'm getting reports from other people, and it just seemed like there was just it was nonstop protests and demonstrations. There were confrontations between law enforcement and those who are protesting. And here you are, and you are trying to get some good quality food to some inmates, and this happened. So for me as a person and a Black person and all this going on, I mean, at my place of employ, and I'm a pencil pusher. I'm sitting at a desk, they're asking me, so how do you feel about it? And I'm in my feelings. So I'm like, what is going on with you? You know what I mean? You in the uniform, and you're trying to push up or like bring some type of correct something within the system that's being heavily critiqued at this moment.
Well, let me put it in the timeline. The height of COVID throughout March 2020, and for me, it was February 2020, when I first had any dealings with what was going on with COVID, all the way through into 2021. The bread incident, and it's hard to connect those two, that happened in September of last year.
Okay. All right.
So it wasn't during.
It wasn't during the. Okay, got you. Okay, all right.
It wasn't. Okay. It wasn't like all together. So that's why I was wondering about compartmentalizing.
Yeah. No, this is like a year later that you're talking about.
Yeah, that was in more recent times. But I can remember again. I keep going back to practicing the pause. No matter how angry I can be about a situation happening, I can't immediately react about a whole lot of things. That's the part within me, that it's the training that I'm doing, it's the job that I'm doing. It's like you're making a mistake on whatever it is when you're doing and you're sitting, and you said a pencil pusher. Well, for the most part, that was me. I'm the unit commander. So I wasn't out there dealing with it. I was behind the scenes trying to make sure that food was shipped out there for our people on the line. And if you did a part two, I could get a little bit deeper into that, because it was an interesting time, very interesting time from an admin standpoint. But I can remember feeling a lot of different feelings, but I think the thing that hurts the most are some of the jokes and the kind of, maybe it's more of a demeanor of kind of get over it. The things I was seeing on TV where people are pretending to reenact. I remember seeing something that was circulating around, and I think someone sent it to me. And it was like during one of the football, and I'm sorry, I'm not a football buff. I don't even know. I go to the Super Bowl for the snacks. Trust me. Whatever jersey my husband's wearing, I just wear one that looks like it. I don't even know who's playing. But it was Mahomes, if I have his name right. And who's the guy that, I don't know, was in some big football. I know his face when I see him. I don't know if it's Brady. No, it's not him. But I don't know. Maybe Tom Brady. I could have it wrong. But there was an image where he was kneeling on Mahomes' neck. Oh, wow. In that actual same kind of, and my heart was like, who could do something like that? Like, where do you get that is okay? And my first thought, suspending even on that, is that this is Sidra independent thinking. That person should never have, in a uniform. You wear a uniform and you're entrusted with people's lives. It's, again, I can't take my political party into the contacts that I make. Our biggest problem is the culture of it being okay. Freedom of speech doesn't mean you treat people like crap. There's also the freedom of decorum, the freedom of not mistreating people, the freedom of, we're all human beings and none of us know what we were going to drop into when we came out of our mothers. It's the freedom of humanity and reaching within and trying to do the better things. But in this uniform, and I'm speaking specifically in the uniform, we need to get out of those feelings and that group think. Everybody doesn't think like you. But when we walk into a certain situation, we have to handle it a certain way. And I don't have the time to stand there and squabble with you whether we're on the same political party. But I hear a lot of that constantly, statements like fake news. Literally from my supervisors. I would hear it in meetings that we would have, and that's fake news. And immediately in my mind, I'm triggered to think of one particular political party.
Yeah. I know. I said that's a trigger for you. Yeah.
And not that it's a bad thing, because in and of itself, anybody can say whatever they want to say. But I believe we need to learn to be more professional in uniform. And professional is easier to do. It really is. If it's not, it ain't personal, Dame. I pulled you over because you were speeding and your back tail lights out, your child hanging out of the side window, no car seat, there's something dangling in your whatever. And we can have a conversation, and I might just look at you and go, okay, and you explain to me, hey, I'm having a bad day. This is what happened. And I've had it happen. Hey, I'm sorry, slow down. Better next time. And then there's some cases where we don't need you wiggling and shouting but there's an anger. There's an amazing book, and I have to give him a book shout out. I'm sorry if you don't mind me doing that. But it's by Phil Allen called Open Wounds. That book is amazing. I read about things where the things that we, are from the past that bubble up and well up in us, and the reason that we hear things a certain way, like that term fake news. And I always say, if you take a baby, place them on a bed, and all you do is bark, what's that baby going to do when it opens its mouth? Mm-hmm. And a person can only take so many, okay, let me not say anything about that. Okay, maybe it's me. Let me just go and I get in my car and I'm angry. Like, I know in my head that had nothing to do with the situation. You wouldn't have treated somebody else that didn't look like me like that. But is it worth that fight right in that moment? It has to be worth it to me if it's that which direction I'm going. And then how far am I going to take that? So there's a lot to be said for the internal and how people can suspend. And for me, I think my biggest thing with the lawsuit is that I would feel almost like, yeah, you have a point, you feel I'm hard on my staff. No, I brought accountability to a group of people that were okay doing nothing. And the best part about it is I documented and kept good records of it because I didn't trust that you were going to believe me. Some of that, and it's not just Alex's fault, it's just other things, even not Alex, but other experiences that I had. But 17 years ago, I could almost not be sitting here had I not had proof. Mm. And had I not in the mindset, he wasn't my husband back then, but Eric and I'm like, we're talking and discussing it like, since one person's telling us, no, this didn't even happen, and you're already telling you that it's not going to be taken any further. We need to put it in writing or document it somehow. I shouldn't have to live where I have to document, but you know what? I'm a snitch when I document. Interesting. Maybe if you treated me just like you treat anyone else, maybe if you understood that accountability is going to cause for a whole lot of pushback. People don't want to work. What is that? Oh, you got too many ideas. Cafe, a position for people to be able to promote. You trying to hire staff members, and what is wrong with this woman coming here thinking she can affect change? Mm. I will end with this about that particular thing. I do not agree, and Dame opened that door and like put me on the spot about candidates. But one of the hardest parts to listen to is the playing to the audiences. Whoever's sitting in front at that time, the message sounds like it fits that particular group. And it goes against anything that I would, and I'm not saying I'm a perfect person. Remember, I said I was born of imperfect parents, but I try to do the right thing for people. And it's not just about what's going to pad my pockets. I want to ride off in my fifth wheel. And I was ready to do that. If I had wanted to do something foul, I would have brought all this out 3 years ago. If anybody's doing the math, I was just minding my own business, doing my job, thinking my husband initially was cuckoo for actually upsetting our whole retirement. But at the same time, admiring him for wanting to do that is the most admirable thing that I could imagine for a human being to say, hey, family, it's going to be a bit of a sacrifice. And we're empty nesters recently, but that's a noble thing for him to run for office. And absolutely, Lieutenant Sidra Strong, not the wife, would be honored to have him sitting in that seat, because I know it's not just talk. This man has been working on plans till he blue in the face. He hardly sleeps because he wants a difference. And his difference is not, I'm sorry, no offense to anyone, but it's not just about the Black argument. His difference is for fairness across the board, but he's also very strong in that we're not going to ignore, and I opened with this, if we're going to look at history, we need to look at all of it, not just the stuff that makes everybody feel warm and fuzzy because of what your upbringing was. Because I'm sorry, some of us didn't get that warm and fuzzy. And if we were going through a time capsule and went back in time, I think y'all know where I would be. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying. And so it's noble of him to do this. I know, and the campaign, you're doing this because of the campaign. No, I'm speaking out because right now, let's set Eric aside. No one really stopped to ask me how I feel about this. No one stopped and said, oh, wow, that's probably, they immediately made me a traitor. And, well, why is she coming out with this? Not even knowing the time frame of when it all happened. And sending me text messages that you're ashamed of me. I almost, like hunched my shoulders and went, I'm so sorry. You don't, how do you treat people that way? Because most in their minds who would do something like that have the idea that I'm a little less than. That's what that felt like. You can say that to me. I would just wonder, and I'll never know the answer to it, whether you would say that to someone else. I don't know that you would. Do not know what you would. But I also know a little bit of history about that and some not so good things that happened with women that look like me in that person's life. So I think that was, there's always an underlying, kind of like that open wounds thing. There's always a backstory. We're living out our childhood and adulthood. If you really think about it, you got some habits that you need to let go. And I write them down sometimes and say, and my husband, of course, the guy that knows all the policy and everything, reminds me of them. You said you're gonna work on that, but we all have inner things that come out in our adulthood. And I think I'm guilty of one thing. Ambitious, wanting to make food services better. And I was too gracious with this person, this one individual that was struggling in their job position. And instead of them accepting my help, it was actually used and turned against me.
Wow.
And my supervisor never came in and said, hey, what do you need? I'm here for you. It started off as, I couldn't even find you. And then all of a sudden now you're nitpicking everything that I do. And that's the story that you're not going to get. Now, of course, people will tell me when they know who my supervisors are, they're like, oh, well, it makes sense. Internally. But nobody's going to say, hey, you know what? They're not going to put that in a comment in a newspaper article, whatever. They're not going to put that in there and go, well, yeah, you know what? If you know who our supervisor is, there's a point. No one's going to do that. And I'm sure wherever this is aired, people are going to still have, she's pulling the race card and, oh, why did she wait so long? And, oh, why? And it's so sad that we are quick to judge. I posted something on my Facebook the other day, and I think it said, thinking is hard, so judging is easier, or something to that effect. It takes too much work to really think about it. And that's where I say the power of that pause. It's easier for me to just, oh yeah, such and such and this and that. And my mother never taught me how to be a catty woman. I really never learned how to do that. So I'll come and talk to someone and they're like looking at me like, why is she talking to me? People don't speak to each other in this world. I never knew how to, I wasn't raised that way. So the image that's being painted of me is so hurtful because I am so in my faith. And when you say, and Dame, you ask, how do I navigate that? First and foremost, God. And that is not a Miss America speech. When I am praying on my knees, I'm like, God, fix me first so that I can help others. So it hurts to have people paint this image of me as somebody that wouldn't help. I couldn't have done all of that I did at food services and be cruel to people. It's just not enough time in the day. I ain't even that good. And I think I'm pretty good. So yes, and I thank the two of you for even, there's a layer peeling off when you're able to get things out, or you peel back an onion layer. It helps you, and it's calming, and your inner circles kind of get tired of hearing of it. So I appreciate you for giving me this platform to be able to speak to some of the things that I have dealt with. And I appreciate you both for listening and also for with ARC Republic and Dame, who I've had in-depth conversations with. And I know he's a change agent, as I call it. He wants better for our community. And that warms my heart because I never got from him, oh, you're the police, so I don't want to talk. His was more, yeah, I want to know because we need to fix it. And so I so appreciate that too, the willingness, because it starts with conversation. And right now what we're getting is, if I hear the word Board of Supervisors, those words, one more time, it's their fault. Everything. The Board of, it's everybody else's fault. And that to me is, my question would be, when do you say, hey, Dane, you and I had an argument, and this is me all day long. I'll be mad at you, fighting and scratching with you. And then I'll call you and go, Dane, okay, I've had a little time to think. Let's at least, I still don't agree with you, but let's sit at the table and let's talk. I would ask, since they're doing so much dirt, why don't you ask them for a meeting? Let's go have coffee at the Starbucks. Because we're all in the public light and we looking crazy, pointing fingers. I don't hear it much from that side, but I hear the Board of Supervisors. That's okay, but I want to hear about what you've done. Not I have actually brought reform. That word drives me nuts because I want to hear the specifics of the things that you've done and accomplished in supporting the staff. Because real support for the staff is accountability. It's not giving them special uniform pieces so that you're popular. That creates and keeps that cycle of culture going. It's communication that we need. And it's not just within the sheriff's department, it's just human being to human being. We don't need a president or whoever's sitting up there to give us our guidance. I can choose to be okay with you because I'm sitting and let's have a conversation and I learn who you are. And we could become the best of friends, but most of us have barriers and it keeps us stuck. So I could talk all day, as you can see. And then you all, if you have anything else to ask me, I'm an open book. But I again, thank you for the platform.